What up guys, SuperMetal983 here bringing us another album review, and this time I've got another local release for you to check out. If you're into your modern style metalcore like While She Sleeps, Of Mice and Men, Wage War, and maybe even a bit of Architects vibe, then this is definitely for you. You need to check this one out. It's a killer release. But I'm going to be reviewing the debut EP from the band GroundCulture, which is self-titled GroundCulture. This EP dropped about a month or so ago, and since then I've had it on repeat. And since I took my little break a couple of weeks ago, I decided, you know what, it's about time that I get my arse in gear and review this EP for the guys. I'd just like to say props to the guys for helping us out with making the thumbnail and sending the logos over. Really appreciate it. But yeah, this is definitely one of my favourite EPs so far in 2018. There's been a lot of great EPs this year, but this one, I don't think I've listened to an EP quite as much as I have this release. This is an exquisite modern metalcore release, and definitely something that is going to, I think, go a bit under the radar in 2018, in which it shouldn't, because this is an excellent stuff. It's definitely one of those releases that has definitely surprised me. The band's inception started about, I think it was 6 months ago or so, something like that, with the release of their debut single, which is the second track on this EP, which is called Confessions. And when I checked that out, I was like, ooh, this is going to be something very special, and something that's definitely going to be high on the pedestal as being one of the best releases of 2018, whether it be an EP or an album. I didn't know at that point what was going to be coming forth from the band. But then they dropped their second single just before the release of this EP, called Sculptures, which is the fourth track on this release. And I was like, yep, this is going to be something pretty gnarly. And then the EP dropped, and I bought it on Amazon, if I'm not mistaken. And it's also available on the likes of iTunes, Spotify, and all the other music streaming sites around. So I'm sure whatever you use, it's on there. So make sure you check it out, and I'll leave some links down below where you can check it out. And as soon as I put it on, I knew instantly that this was going to be an absolute class listen to. It's going to be something very enjoyable, and I was indeed right. From the first track, Derailed, up until the last track, Compassion Part 2, you're in for a massive, enjoyable, just overall riff fest, if you ask me. This is an exquisite release. It definitely puts me in mind, personally, of the likes of While She Sleeps and Of Mice and Men. Definitely falls in line with that kind of like riffier style of metalcore, but still has a lot of melodies flowing into there, and great progressive vibes across the entire song structures that are on this release. In particular, the breakdowns, I wouldn't say are, you know, those stereotypical metalcore style breakdowns that everyone kind of refers to, like the ones and zeros and stuff like that. This is more riffier orientated, and a bit more well executed, and just a bit more enjoyable. I love the like 0 to 1 breakdowns. I mean, I love Immutable, for example. So, but yeah, this is definitely not in that ballpark, if you ask me. This is more in the sort of line of riffier breakdowns, if you ask me. So if you're into that sort of thing, definitely check this out. The overall vibes on the song structures and the progression throughout the course of this EP definitely puts me more in mind of the likes of While She Sleeps, Brainwash, mixed with a bit of Wage War in there for good measure, with a little progressive elements here and there, just to give it that little bit more moreness in overall sense of things. You know, like, it really adds a lot more atmosphere and a lot more wow factor to it, if you ask me. And definitely, I'd say it. One thing that also adds to this overall sensation that this EP gives is the overall, like, what's it called? Is it like the synths and the orchestrations? I'm going to say that in speech marks that are going on behind this release. Definitely give it that little bit more depth and overall like extra elements in it to make it that little bit more enjoyable to listen to, and gives it that great atmosphere overall. The drum work is absolutely precise, very precision drumming on this release, and definitely executes perfectly. It's not flash, it's not overly technical and showy off in progressiveness or anything like that. It's just overall just really perfectly executed with precision and power to execute. The musicianship that is on this release is bar none incredible, if you ask me. My favourite element though has to be the overall vocal delivery on this album, because from the start to the end it's more of a powerful, rich sense of just passion being put forth on the vocal delivery on this release. I think it definitely paints the image of what these guys can execute live. I mean, personally, I haven't seen them live yet. I know they've performed with the likes of 30 Seconds to Mars, which I never thought a metalcore band would open for 30 Seconds to Mars, like, but oh well. 30 Seconds to Mars, they also played with Every Time I Die in London, if I'm not mistaken, and they played their own headline show in Newcastle with a bunch of great local bands. I can't remember who was on that lineup off the top of my head anyway, and they're also going on now to playing a couple of festivals across the UK. I can't remember which festivals it is, but check out their Facebook and you'll know which ones they're playing. Make sure you check them out at the festival if you're going to whatever festival that is. But anyway, but yeah, the vocal delivery, definitely, and the lyrics especially, definitely have that sense of what Architects managed to conjure up, as well as the likes of While She Sleeps as well, is give it that sing-along factor. Like, every song on this album has a sing-along element in there that you, from the first listen, you know the lyrics straight away, and by the 10th one, you're singing in harmony or anything like that, you know. That's the kind of vibe that you get when you listen to this release, and my God, it definitely executes that perfectly. I love the lyrics on this album, and the vocal delivery, as I said. There is one song I like to say, which is my favourite song on this release, which is the third track on this EP, which is called Deviate, which is my personal favourite song on this release. The chorus in that definitely gives me a kind of Cold World of Mice and Men kind of era vocal delivery and atmosphere to it. But so if you're into that, you'll definitely enjoy that song in particular. But yeah, as I said, that's my favourite song on this album. My second favourite one would probably have to be Confessions, because I've obviously exposed myself to that one quite a bit. But I'd also like to add the last two tracks, which is Narrative and Compassion Part 2. For all Derailed, Confessions, Deviate, and Scopes just definitely have that sense of riffiness and catchiness and more heavier sense. Narrative and Compassion Part 2 definitely have that same sense of like easing back a little bit and then writing something a little bit more different vibe to close off this EP. And I think that overall just adds so much more. I believe I mentioned that on a previous release that I've reviewed. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, but yeah, I love those kind of elements where it just fades off nicely and takes a little bit of a different path for the last couple of tracks. I absolutely enjoy that a lot, and definitely think Narrative and Compassion Part 2, Compassion Part 2 out of the two is definitely my favourite. But yeah, Confessions, Deviate, and Compassion Part 2 are definitely tracks that you just need to check out personally. I think these tracks kill so much, and definitely if you're into modern style metalcore, this is definitely a release you need to check out. It's very riffy, very clean production, and definitely executes with precision and passion, if you ask me. So make sure you check out GroundCulture, as I said, if you're into While She Sleeps, Of Mice and Men, Wage War, and Architects. Definitely check out this EP. For an overall score though, I'm going to give this a solid 9 out of 10. An excellent, excellent release, and definitely this EP has made its mark so far in the Northeast metal and core community. So if you want to see what the Northeast metal and core community has to offer, I'll leave a link down below to a Spotify playlist that me and the guitarist from October Ends have put together to showcase some of the best that the Northeast metal and core community has to offer. So make sure you check out that playlist if you're interested down below. But yeah, make sure you check out GroundCulture and their debut EP, GroundCulture. Giving it a solid 9 out of 10. And I'll see you until the next video. And remember, stay metal, and I'll see you later.